So last winter I was rebuilding the carburetors on my Suzuki SV650, and I disassembled the carburetor and pulled the diaphragms out, and I ended up having to wait a month or so for some parts to come in to finish the job. And it was just sitting in my garage, so it was exposed to temperatures in the low 30s. After picking it back up with the project and finishing cleaning out the carburetor, I went to reassemble them, and I noticed that the diaphragm had shrunk a considerable amount and it no longer seated properly, as you can see here. And it's very noticeable at the top where the pressed injet is. So I followed some suggestions from an early 2000s forum post, and it actually worked. I filmed this in January of 2023, and right now we're in January of 2024, so a year later, and they're still holding up. And I've also put nearly 10,000 miles on the bike in that time and haven't had any issues. So before getting started, just as a disclaimer, I want to say that I'm not an expert, and this is probably not the correct way to do this, but I was about to buy a new set of diaphragms anyways, so I just figured that I'd give it a try, see what happened. So with that being said, use the information in this video at your own risk. First thing that I did was I got a small container that was big enough to fit the opening of the diaphragm, and I placed it in there and then filled it up with a bit of gasoline, and I let it soak for about an hour to rehydrate the rubber. So that helped a bit, but not nearly enough, so I dried off the diaphragm and I used a heat gun on low heat to warm up the rubber and make it expand. I made sure to constantly keep it moving around so that I was not just heating up one specific area, because there could be a risk of it damaging that one spot or making it start to melt. And I'm sure a hairdryer could also work for this if you don't have a heat gun. So I had this soaking in the gasoline for about an hour, and then it still wasn't quite big enough, so dried it off and then hit it with the heat gun for a bit on low heat. But yeah, the diaphragm expanded and now it's fitting right to the edges like we want it to. Alright, so we're ready to put the cover on here. So we've got a spring, it's going to go down in there, and then this cover can only go on one way, so this indentation is going to go where this little hole is, and then there's a tab that sticks up, and that's going to go into this indentation. So just line that up there, and then we're ready to put the screws in for the cover. And just to show you guys, here's a video of me starting the bike up after reassembling the carburetors and putting them back in the bike. And it might go without saying, but to prevent this from happening in the future, you should have the diaphragm out of the carburetor for as little time as possible, and you're going to want to store the diaphragm in an environment where it's not freezing cold when it's out of the carburetor. So like I said in the beginning of the video, do this at your own risk, but this is what worked for me. You know, if you want to give this a try, go for it. But please leave a comment down below and let me know if this worked for you, or if it didn't work for you, or if there's another method that you used that worked better than this one. Thank you for watching.